The idea behind the whole Puphedz world or universe is that the Puphedz characters, the little wooden figures, are are sort of a traveling troupe of performers. They travel in this rickety puppet cart, and there's a big burly guy that pulls this cart from place to place, and he stops and that opens up and the curtain opens, and these Puphedz guys come out, Woodrow and Chip and Peter and Leaf.
Those are the real puppets' names, the actors. But when they're performing in their story, say the Tattle-Tale Heart, they are the characters in that story. They're no longer Woodrow Largebottom or Peter Fidewood. And every show that they do, they're going to be playing different characters with different costumes, different characters altogether. And it's never going to be the same show twice.
It was an idea Jurgen kind of came up with Ryan to do this little project. We were both, Jurgen and I, have been kind of looking for something that we can do to sort of push our own creative talents and do the things that we want to do. You know, Jurgen being kind of producing, writing, and directing and kind of pushing into that realm, and of course, I want to shoot. And so we needed something that would be easy enough for us to do with limited resources.
It's completely independently financed. It's all done out of pocket. I mean, 99% of it was just Jurgen and Ryan. They basically put up everything, and a lot of long lost weekends by them. You know, they went ahead and put a lot of sweat and tears and blood into the work, and it looks great.
We would listen to these old-time radio shows while we were busy in the shop building our props and stuff. And one of the programs in particular, this thing called The Weird Circle, had an episode of Edgar Allan Poe's Tell-Tale Heart. And it was just hilarious to listen to because the actors, you know, being live radio at the time, they were very over dramatic sort of, you know, and it's just, if you ever listen to these shows, you know what I mean. But they did this Tell-Tale Heart thing, and Ryan and I just sort of looked at each other while we were listening to this and thought, well, you know, that would be kind of funny to do as a puppet show.
This ought to work, by gum.
We thought, well, nobody else is really attempting to do this kind of a thing with the type of puppets that we're working with, and so we just went with that, and we thought, well, let's stick with the Tell-Tale Heart because it's a simple enough story. Only has 4 characters, and we thought that we could do something really kind of neat and fun with that Poe story.
What the?
If we were to have done this with real people, for one, I don't think it would have been as charming. And the other problem is that, you know, a real person has to walk through life-size sets, you know. I mean, it would have been a huge undertaking to create what we've created on a full scale, you know, and a puppet is about so big. And so the sets only need to be, you know, this big. They don't need to be full scale. Well, I would say we built 99% of everything. We couldn't find materials that fit their scale. Not only that, but we had a certain look that we were going for. And, you know, you go to a doll shop or a model shop, and the items they sell there are pretty much straightforward reproductions of actual chairs and dressers and things, and we didn't want that look. We needed everything to be a little bit askew.
Well, keep looking.
The style, pretty much it came from a movie called The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The sets and everything in Caligari have a very sort of twisted and off-kilter feel to them, and I always thought that was very interesting. Well, one of the first things that we did on the Puphedz show was construct the Puphedz cart, which is this monstrous thing right here. This took us, I believe it was a good month and a half to build, and again we had to build everything from scratch, including the wheels, I mean everything. On the day that we were shooting, we gathered early in the morning, rented a big flatbed truck, a stake bed type truck, loaded this thing on there. The storm clouds were moving in and we just headed out to our dry lake location, dumped everything off, got our shots. We were there for a good part of the day, and we managed to get everything we needed, put it all back on the truck. It was very hectic. The studio was a sort of a makeshift small space that we were in. Very cramped. We had the sets that were built basically on a riser, probably about 4 feet, 4.5 feet high, so that the puppeteers could be underneath, because the puppet on top has a control rod coming out below. So every puppet set was built on top of this raised platform. The actual puppet set itself wasn't very big, because, you know, it's in scale of the puppet. A wall might be maybe at most 2 feet tall. And then we puppeteered from below.
We didn't have any luxury of a huge sound stage where we had a lot of room to put things. So lighting units and sets and people were all kind of crammed into this very tiny space.
We had to work in these tiny confined spaces around lighting, around rigging and everything like that. So we're puppeteering up on the stage like this, just trying to get the puppet to do a small moving its arm or picking up a glass or something like that. And because the space was so small, the ceiling was low and there were a lot of lights around there, in the summertime it was very, very hot in there. You would open up the door, walk in there, and there was at least a 30-degree difference.
Mark, he's got more of a mind for, you know, all the different lenses and the camera equipment and the filters and all the more technical stuff, and plus he's got a good eye visually as well. But I can communicate with him what I am looking for, and then he can make that, you know, he can put that down onto film or video or whatever. He can make it real. So I trust his judgment on these things, and that's why I chose Mark to do it.
You have to kind of be very accommodating with your lighting units. You do not want to have things in the way. You want the puppeteers to be able to be as unrestricted as they possibly can to do the job that they need to do. But working with the puppets themselves, yes, could be pretty difficult, just simply because it's tedious trying to get the moves right. It's probably more difficult for them than it was for what I was doing, but as far as lighting is concerned, I want to make sure that I'm not casting shadows of the puppeteers across the set, and it's a very tiny set, so if anybody gets anywhere near a light, you're going to see a shadow. I learned a lot about having to stage the camera and lighting, specifically on a smaller scale for one, playing around, experimenting with what I would term unconventional or non-conventional lighting units, like just replacement bulbs that you would get in your little, you know, reading lamps at home, and just making those as an actual lamp that you could use on set.
Nothing up here.
The difficulty, I think, in working with the puppets is just trying to get some of the simple articulation done. You're not sure how difficult it's going to be until you get on set and try it. That's the main problem there. You know, you kind of schedule your day. You think, well, we can get 4 or 5 shots done, and it ends up you only get 1 done because it just took so long to work it out.
So if it doesn't go right, you have to stop, restart everything, put everything back to where it was before you started shooting, and shoot it over again. And if it doesn't work, then you got to keep doing it over and over again.
What seemed like simple things, like walking through a doorway, for example. There's a shot where where the 2 police officers come to the house, and we had to have them both coming through this doorway. And it must have taken us 40 to 50 takes to try to get that shot because we couldn't get them coordinated properly. There's all these puppeteer people holding on to bodies and arms, and just getting the timing of everything just right became an arduous process.
Ryan and Jurgen come up with all these blocking with these characters they want to do with the puppets, and then once you get on the set, you find out that the puppets pretty much do what they want. You're pretty much a slave to them.
I imagine you gentlemen are finished with your questions. Yeah.
The puppet itself is probably about 13. They vary. I mean, some of the puppets are shorter than others, but they're all around a foot tall. And then there's a long rod that comes down below the puppet with a control mechanism on it for a head and neck movements and for the mouth control. The eye blinks and the eye shifting, the looking left and right, are remote control operated through servo controls, and a radio control operator does that. And you move the joysticks and the eyes will blink and they'll look around. The limbs are controlled either by strings or rods. Sometimes we'll attach a rod into the side of the hand so that we can have him reach for something, or maybe we need to pull it across. And then in post-production, all of that sort of extra gear, if it shows up in the shot, is eliminated. Well, this is one of our shots where we had to remove a rod. As you can see, we've got the puppet's hand, he's raising a knife up, and there's a rod attached to the back of the knife. And the clip, if we play it, there's the rod and a big hand coming in. The idea is now to eliminate the rod. So we have to go to a different program in which we create it's sort of almost frame by frame, a little area which is outlined here with these little lines here, which can be manipulated. This is basically a traveling mask. We've got this shot of the knife and the hand with the rod layered over another shot, which is simply a blank shot of the wall behind it. So the idea then is that whatever is inside of this little boundary, this traveling mask, whatever's inside there will be erased, and you'll see through to the blank wall on the other side. But we can skip forward ahead a bit, and you can see now the mask is growing larger, and we go through the entire sequence. Now the mask basically encompasses the whole thing with this hand in there. We eliminate that, and all you see is a blank wall on the other side. We can bring it into our editing program, and there we go. We want to do as many episodes as we can. Right now we're thinking of a second episode, which will be based once again on another Poe story. And we've just now started putting some ideas together for it, and little script bits and pieces, little scenarios for it. But we haven't started actually constructing any sets or anything yet. But definitely we'll do that, and then we'll try to move on, do an episode 3, 4, 5, however many we can get produced.
You know, you want to start off small, create something that people like a lot, and then continue on and expand and make it bigger, better.
You know, we're at the very first stage. We've got episode 1 done. Episode 2 is next, and then who knows?